So with all of these LLMs containing billions and billions of data points, it's almost impossible for an AI not to hallucinate. In this video, I'm going to share exactly what are AI hallucinations, why they happen, and what you can do about them to prevent these hallucinations from happening. Now, if you like what you see, like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to continue getting videos like this or other tips to improve your productivity and creativity with AI. So jumping straight into it, what are AI hallucinations? So in an example here, which I took from Geeks for Geeks, you'll see that the user is asking to give a word similar to augmentation that starts with an M. And after many failed attempts, the AI finally reaches the point where it says, multiplication is a word that starts with M that means something similar to augmentation. Now, to the defense of the AI here, I would say that the user did not specify that they were looking for a word that was at a similar definition. But regardless, you'll see this happening throughout, where AI ends up inventing information, especially with dates or exact names, because we're depending on AI more and more to give us information. And if it's inventing facts, this can be quite detrimental for our knowledge as well as the future generation. So then why does an AI hallucinate? Well, as I said at the start of this video, most of these LLMs are trained off of billions of data points, so it's almost impossible for it not to get confused and try to create something new. At the end of the day, it's been trained to try to give you an output, and so if it can't find what it's looking for, it might just create something. On the second point, these LLMs are rewarded in a way where it's supposed to give you some sort of output. So instead of saying, I don't know, if it can't find a clear answer, what it'll do is it'll pull from its existing knowledge base and try to create that answer. And then lastly, as I noted before, with all of these billions of data points, exact names or dates, perhaps the LLM hasn't been trained specifically on what you're looking for, hence making up information. So are these AI hallucinations getting better or worse over time? Well, a lot of stats have pointed to the fact that with every new model, hallucinations are actually dropping 3 percentage points. Overall, looking at the data, it does seem that hallucinations are decreasing as every new model continues to expand. So then what can you do about them to prevent or reduce hallucinations moving forward? And so these 5 tips I'm going to share moving forward, they're not a be-all end-all solution, but they're hopefully going to help you think differently in how you can add these to your prompts to hopefully reduce the probability of hallucinations. So the very first one you see here is what I call source constraints. And what this does is it forces the model to rely only on the source that you provided it. And so taking an example here, the source constraints method is every time you create a prompt, make sure to end it off by saying cite the page numbers or indicate that a source is not found if it's unclear. So you see here, it's given me a bunch of results based off of my prompt. And because I wasn't really seeing it indicate that it wasn't uncertain, one thing that I tested is at the end, it did mention that China sold nearly 7 times more EVs than the US and almost 3 times more than Europe. So I wanted to test whether or not it would actually hallucinate. So what I wrote is explain how US is the winner in EV sales. Clearly based off of the analysis, China is beating US and Europe when it comes to EV sales. But I'm triggering it to say, explain how US is winning here. And then I'm prompting it once more to indicate if it can't find that information in the documentation, make sure that you tell me it's unclear. And so it did exactly that, not found in source. So this is one clear way to prevent hallucinations from happening, especially when you're doing research. Now, the second way to prevent hallucinations in your prompting is what I call the uncertainty permission, or allowing the AI to say, I don't know. And so looking at this example here, I uploaded the same EV document and I prompted it using the EV report, estimate what share of EVs will be on the Chinese roads by 2030. If the document does not state this explicitly, say, I don't have enough information to state. So you can also just simplify this by saying, I don't know. So what it did was it gave me an output, and then it specifically says, does not explicitly state the projected share of electric vehicles on Chinese roads. After it gave its response, it concluded with a final statement saying, I don't have enough information to estimate. Now, the third point here is the quote extraction. And so what you're doing is bring out a quote from your research. So the third example here, I've uploaded the same EV document and I've asked it extract quotes from the global EV outlook PDF that describe so-and-so. And then once again, at the end of the prompt, I say, if no relevant quotes exist, say no relevant quotes found. So I'm asking specifically to give a quote on the total EV sales in 2024 and the growth in emerging markets. And it was able to give me quotes on those points. But let's say if I were to change this to 2006, because the document is clearly about 2024, 2025. If I do this, will the AI hallucinate and create imaginary quotes up? So it gave me some quotes that mentioned 2026 as a possible anchor of what I'm looking for. However, it did conclude that there was no specific quotes found on total EV sales. And then at the end, it says no explicit quotes mentioned the total EV sales. So this is a great way to double check your work, to double check your research, to make sure that it's not making things up here. And then the fourth one is what I call the COT reasoning. COT stands for chain of thought, and it's a type of prompt technique that you can do to force the AI to explain its reasoning step by step. I've uploaded the same PDF, and then I asked it to explain step by step how you infer the projected 2030 global EV sales share from the data in the report, and then show each reasoning step and highlight any missing assumptions or uncertainty. So it took about a good minute to just go through this documentation, and now it's going to explain step by step how it's actually come to this conclusion. So this chain of thought method is a great way to not only see a step-by-step explanation of what the AI is doing, but also really force yourself to make sure you're getting valid information from an AI. And then finally, we have the expert role. This is just giving an AI a professional persona so that it can assume that expertise and give a much clear, in-depth analysis to whatever you're doing research on. So I uploaded the same PDF file and I said, you are an energy economist analyzing the so-and-so PDF. Explain the policymakers on how trade tariffs could affect EV affordability. And then I wrote down use examples and cite the report where possible. If data is missing, say so explicitly. So while it's done a great job in giving deep analysis, you'll notice along the way, there are points such as here, where it gives me a little point here where quantitative elasticities are not provided in the report. For example, another one here is the point 3, specific elasticities are not reported, and granular pass-through rates are not provided. So although it's giving me the information from an expert persona, it's telling me where in its analysis it's not really sure, or doesn't have the information to give me a very clear-cut answer. So at least I know at these areas, I should be a bit more careful in referencing the AI. So there you have it. Those are 5 tips on how to reduce AI hallucinations from happening in your responses. Now, if you like videos like this, give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if you want to continue plugging yourself into AI for greater productivity and creativity.